You know that feeling, right? That familiar knot in your stomach. The sudden urge to just get away from something difficult.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe it's thinking about a big presentation or, a tough conversation, or even just sitting still with your own thoughts for a few minutes.
Right.
Whatever it is, our first reaction, almost automatic, is often to escape, to just make the feeling stop.
That impulse is incredibly strong, isn't it? It's this really deep-seated human thing, avoiding unpleasant sensations, thoughts, emotions.
Feels like survival sometimes.
Exactly. It feels like self-preservation in the moment.
Yeah.
Our brains are basically wired to move away from what feels like a threat. And yeah, unpleasant feelings often register that way.
But okay, here's the twist we're exploring. What if that instinct, that drive to fight or run from discomfort, nervousness, stress, whatever it is, what if it isn't actually helping us? Not in the long run. What if those feelings aren't the enemy? What if they're something else? Maybe even necessary for growth.
That's precisely the question at the heart of this deep dive.
Right.
We're drawing on this stack of really fascinating materials you've provided. Psychological research, insights from therapy, some really powerful personal stories too.
Right. And our mission today is to kind of cut through the noise, pull out what these sources are telling us about navigating those uncomfortable feelings.
Yeah.
The goal isn't necessarily getting rid of them, but maybe fundamentally changing how we relate to them.
Exactly how we relate.
And how that shift, maybe surprisingly, could lead to a richer, more meaningful life. Okay, let's unpack this stack.
So the first problem the sources really flag is this default setting we have for avoidance. When that wave of uncomfortable sensation or thought or emotion hits, our first move is often to push it away or distract ourselves or try to outthink it somehow.
It's like that classic image trying to hold a beach ball underwater.
Yes, perfect analogy.
The harder you push, the more, pop. It just shoots back up.
Exactly. And a central insight, it really echoes across almost all these materials, from ancient wisdom stuff to modern therapy. It's captured in that phrase. What you resist persists.
And the struggle itself keeps it stuck.
Precisely. When we make the painful feeling the enemy, we actually inadvertently give it more power. The real suffering, the sources suggest, often comes not just from the feeling itself, but from our struggle against it. Think about trying to sleep, that desperate effort not to be awake. That often makes the insomnia worse.
Or fighting grief, maybe.
Yeah, resisting grief can sometimes make it solidify into something longer term, like depression. The effort to eliminate the feeling becomes the engine driving the distress.
Wow, okay. That's a paradox, isn't it?
It really is. And the sources offer this powerful counter idea. What you can feel, you can heal.
Feel to heal.
Okay. Now, that doesn't mean feelings instantly vanish, but the idea is when we allow difficult feelings into our awareness, gradually, safely, they often naturally start to shift. They might lose intensity or just pass through.
Can you give an example? From the materials, something that brings this home.
Yeah, there's a really compelling story in there about a woman, Lauren. She had debilitating panic attacks for years.
Okay.
And she described trying absolutely everything to get rid of the anxiety. Relaxation, positive thinking, medication. She was functioning, kind of, but described it as just white-knuckling it every day, always bracing for the next wave.
She called herself a fugitive, right?
Yeah.
From her own anxiety.
That's the term she used, yeah. A fugitive.
And the really frustrating part for her must have been that despite all that fighting, the anxiety just stayed. It dominated her life.
Exactly. And the perspective from these sources is that she stayed a fugitive because she was trying so hard to eliminate the anxiety. Her resistance, that constant battle against the feeling, it just kept it front and center. All the energy she poured into fighting it actually solidified its presence.
So the big shift wasn't about making the panic finally stop.
No.
It was changing her relationship to the feeling of panic itself.
That's the core insight. A profound one. And the materials describe this as a process, gradually softening that resistance. It's not usually an overnight thing.
Right.
The therapy approaches mentioned and the personal stories, they suggest these sort of stages in developing this different relationship.
Stages? How does that work?
Well, it often starts with just exploring, turning towards the discomfort, maybe with just a tiny bit of curiosity, noticing it's there without judging it immediately.
Okay, just noticing.
Then moving towards tolerating, which means safely enduring the feeling for a bit longer each time without that immediate need to escape.
Building the muscle, kind of?
Sort of, yeah. Then maybe letting the feeling just come and go as it naturally does without trying to control how long it lasts or how intense it gets.
Letting it be?
And sometimes, eventually, people get to a place of welcoming, where you can kind of embrace difficult experiences as just part of life, a normal, sometimes even valuable part of being human.
So for someone like Lauren, with the panic, the process might look like first exploring those little physical sensations of unease before full panic hits.
Exactly.
Then maybe learning to tolerate them while focusing on her breath or something grounding.
Yes, grounding is key.
And eventually just allowing the feeling to be there without needing to fix it or make it go away immediately.
Precisely. Her journey, as described, involved those steps. She was guided to explore those subtle physical tensions first, then learned to tolerate that rising feeling by grounding herself in, say, what she could see or hear, rather than getting lost in the scary thoughts.
Shifting focus.
Yeah. And over time, she learned to identify and just name her emotions, like, okay, that's fear or that's dread, and just allow them space, kind of untangling them from the whole panic story.
It sounds like she learned to be with the feeling itself, the raw sensation, instead of just being swallowed by the thoughts about the feeling.
That's a crucial distinction, yeah. And eventually, the sources say she got to a point where she could consciously surf the waves of anxiety when they came up.
Surf the waves. I like that.
Instead of being knocked over by them. And that's where she talks about finding this newfound freedom. It was a total shift in her relationship with the anxiety.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah.
Not defeating the waves, but learning how to ride it. So what are the practical strategies the sources mentioned for building that capacity?
Mindfulness comes up again and again. It's presented as absolutely foundational, but as one source kind of jokes, it's not just sitting on a cushion trying to empty your mind.
So no instant relaxation on demand. My hopes are dashed.
Well, not necessarily instant, no. It's more about developing a different quality of attention.
Okay.
It's about being present, noticing your internal world, thoughts, feelings, body sensations without getting totally swept away or like fused with them.
Fused.
Yeah, like believing the thought is reality. Mindfulness helps you learn to see them as temporary events happening in you, not as, absolute truths or the definition of who you are.
So if the thought, I'm useless, pops up, mindfulness helps you see it more like, there's the I'm useless thought again, instead of just automatically believing it and acting like it's true.
Exactly that. It helps you recognize, as the sources really emphasize, you are not the thought or you are not the emotion. It's something you're experiencing, not who you fundamentally are.
Okay. And what about the body awareness piece? How does focusing on physical sensations help?
Well, emotions aren't just in our heads, right? They live in the body. Yeah. So paying attention to how they show up physically, maybe that tightness in your chest, a flutter in your stomach, tension in your jaw that lets you connect with the raw experience directly.
Instead of just a story about it.
Exactly. It helps you witness these sensations subtly arising, maybe changing, maybe passing, rather than just getting lost in all the mental chatter about the feeling. One personal reflection described just noticing the physical ache or pressure and just letting it be there, allowing it.
So noticing the physical part, allowing it space without that urgent need to make it go away right now.
Yes. And this links directly to another key strategy the sources talk about called diffusion.
Diffusion, like unfusing.
Exactly. It's about unhooking from unhelpful thoughts. There are different techniques, like naming the story.
Naming the story.
Yeah. So internally you might say, here's the catastrophizing story showing up again. Or, oh, look, the worry story.
No.
Or you could visualize thoughts as just objects passing by, like leaves on a stream or clouds in the sky or even passing cars. It creates a bit of psychological distance.
Okay.
It reduces the thought's power to just dominate your attention and dictate your actions.
I like that naming the story idea. It feels like it takes some of the weight out of it just by labeling it.
It can be really effective. And crucial to all of this, the sources stress over and over, is practice.
Right. It's a skill to build.
It's exactly like building a muscle. You start small, maybe just a 3-minute rule for some formal mindfulness practice, or you can do it informally, just bringing awareness to simple daily things like washing dishes or walking.
Doesn't have to be a huge production.
Not at all. It's about consistent, gentle effort, not about being perfect.
Just showing up for it, even when it feels hard or you think you're doing it wrong.
Absolutely. And kind of running alongside mindfulness is this core skill of acceptance and expansion.
Acceptance and expansion, okay.
This is where you actively learn to make room for the difficult stuff. Expansion means consciously, sort of opening up around the feeling, metaphorically breathing into those tight spots, allowing the difficult sensations, urges, emotions to just flow through you without that struggle.
So it's not just passively putting up with it, it's more like an active opening up.
Exactly. You don't have to like the feeling. The goal isn't liking it. It's simply allowing it to be there without fighting it. Some worksheets included in the source materials actually have people track struggling versus opening up.
Oh, interesting.
And the finding is really consistent. Struggling might give some temporary relief, but it often makes things worse long term. Whereas opening up, even when it's uncomfortable, paradoxically seems to enhance life overall. That still feels so counterintuitive, though. How does letting a bad feeling in make things better?
It's a fair question. The idea is that the immense energy you'd otherwise pour into fighting, suppressing, or avoiding,
Yeah.
that energy gets freed up. And very often, that discomfort, it's showing up precisely because you're moving towards something that really matters to you, your values.
You mean like your core principles, what gives life meaning?
Exactly that. Values are presented almost like a compass. The sources highlight that discomfort often pops up when you're trying to live a life guided by those values, especially when it's challenging.
Like fear of public speaking might show up because you really value sharing your ideas.
Perfect example.
Yeah.
Or the anxiety around a difficult conversation might be there because you value authentic connection in that relationship.
So the discomfort isn't necessarily a sign you're on the wrong path. It could actually be a signal you're moving towards something important, even though it's hard. That's the really powerful reframe they offer. And the practice becomes learning to take action, guided by those values in the presence of the difficult feelings, committing to what matters deep down, even when the discomfort is shouting.
Okay. But we all have our, our go-to ways of trying to dodge the discomfort, don't we? Sources mention something. DOTS.
Yes, DOTS. It's a useful little framework from the materials to help recognize common avoidance patterns.
Okay, break it down.
So, D is for distraction. Constantly seeking external stuff, endless scrolling, gaming, overworking, even sometimes using healthy things like exercise purely to numb out. O is for opting out, avoiding situations, people, activities that might trigger those uncomfortable feelings, staying home instead of going to the party, that kind of thing.
Got it.
T is for thinking strategies. Getting stuck in loops of rumination, endless analysis, blaming others or yourself, fantasizing about escape, or just decision paralysis, thinking instead of feeling or doing.
Right. Analysis paralysis.
Exactly. And S is for substances and other strategies, using alcohol, drugs, food, maybe specific behaviors like excessive shopping, primarily to just change how you feel right now.
I think most of us can probably recognize a few of those in ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. And they work. In the short term, they do offer a temporary escape, but the sources are really clear. While they numb the pain now, they almost always come with a significant long-term cost. They drain your time, energy, damage health, relationships, and ultimately they keep you stuck. They prevent you from moving towards that fulfilling life aligned with your values.
So the very strategies we use to avoid pain often end up creating more pain or limitation down the road.
That's the central paradox the sources really want us to get. Let's circle back to Lauren for a second.
Okay, the woman with panic attacks.
Yeah. She moved from those DOTS, the fighting, the avoiding, towards allowing the sensations, naming the emotions, learning to surf the waves. She stopped opting out of things because panic might happen. Instead, she learned to engage with the experience when it arose.
And that paradoxically gave her freedom back.
Exactly. It allowed her to move through the world again.
There was another powerful example too, wasn't there? Someone named Ed, dealing with anger and shame around family stuff.
Yes, Ed's story really shows the depth this process can reach. He described feeling intensely as a third culture kid, and initially he used constant travel almost as a subtle form of avoidance. He carried this deep pain related to his father, feeling unloved or unaccepted, especially as a gay man, and just trying to intellectualize it or distract himself didn't really touch the core suffering.
So how did changing his relationship to those feelings help him?
Through really dedicated mindfulness and, crucially, self-compassion practices, Ed learned to become much more aware of his emotions, how the anger, the sadness, the shame felt physically in his body.
Right, the embodiment again.
Yes, and instead of getting lost in the mental stories about his dad or the past, He learned to just be present with the raw underlying pain itself.
Making room for those really tough, intense emotions.
Precisely. And by deliberately bringing self-compassion to that experience, maybe using phrases like, may I be kind to myself right now, he shifted things. Instead of just being angry at his father, he connected with his own vulnerability, his own deep need to be seen and loved.
Wow.
And that process started to loosen up his rigid sense of identity, which had been so tied up with that past pain.
And did that difficult work eventually lead somewhere like forgiveness?
Yes. According to his account, it allowed him to move towards forgiveness of his father and also, importantly, of himself, and to cultivate a more flexible sense of who he was. Even his relationship with travel changed. It became less about running away and more about self-care and exploring things he valued from a place of more honesty about his own needs.
These personal stories, they really highlight the shift, don't they? Moving from fighting discomfort to feeling it, relating to it differently.
They really do. And the collective wisdom from other shared experiences in the sources reinforces this, too. Ideas like just observing emotions without having to react immediately, creating that vital gap between the stimulus and your response.
That space for choice.
Exactly. That space where, as Viktor Frankl famously put it, lies our growth and freedom. Understanding first, maybe intellectually, then feeling it that you are not the emotion. Learning to find that inner calm center, even amidst turmoil. Trusting that emotions, like weather, they arise, they are experienced, and they do eventually pass.
So instead of being yanked around by a strong feeling, you develop this capacity to pause, notice it, and then choose how to respond, guided by what matters to you, your values.
That's it, exactly. And this capacity is especially crucial when you're facing those really tough life dilemmas. Situations where there's just no easy, painless, right answer.
Yeah, those are the worst. What guidance do the sources offer for those impossible spots?
Well, first, just acknowledging the reality. There probably isn't a quick fix or a perfect, pain-free option. Second, recognizing you're already making a choice, even if it's the choice to stay stuck or do nothing.
Oof, okay.
So the practice then becomes consciously acknowledging the choice you're making today and taking a stand based on your values right now, even with all the uncertainty and discomfort.
So if I'm agonizing over, say, staying in a job versus leaving, instead of endless analysis paralysis,
Yeah.
I acknowledge that by staying today, I'm making a choice.
Yeah.
And the practice is figuring out how I want to show up in that job, align with my values today, even with the difficult feelings still there.
That's the practice. And then you apply the strategies we've talked about. Name the dilemma story, are the should I stay or should I go loop again? Practice expansion with the anxiety or fear that comes up. And crucially, practice self-compassion. Remind yourself this is hard, you're human. There often isn't a perfect answer.
It's becoming really clear how this ability to sit with discomfort is just so directly tied to personal growth.
Absolutely. The sources make that connection explicit. It's central. Learning to be with discomfort isn't just about managing bad feelings. It's a fundamental skill. It empowers you to actually pursue what's meaningful and important in your life, despite the fact that challenging emotions will inevitably show up.
It's the difference between a life that kind of shrinks away from pain versus a life that expands towards what matters, even when it's uncomfortable.
Right. That capacity to allow pain frees up so much energy that was getting sucked into the struggle of avoidance. And it lets you invest that energy in things that enhance your life, relationships, activities, pursuits aligned with your values, experiencing difficult emotions and learning to relate to them differently. It's not just a technique, it's presented as a vital part of the human journey, something that allows you to become, as one source put it, a better being.
Building that inner resilience, maybe? That capacity to handle life's storms without being completely capsized and still choose your direction even when the wind is howling.
And ultimately, yeah, it allows you to fully step into your own life, pursuing what makes it feel rich and meaningful. Trusting that while discomfort will definitely show up.
It always does.
It always does. But it no longer has to be the barrier that stops you in your tracks.
Okay, so this whole deep dive, looking at the materials you shared, it really shows that instead of trying to build a life completely free of uncomfortable feelings, which is impossible anyway, right?
Right.
feelings without getting totally swept away. That's maybe the crucial skill. It's the skill that frees up your energy and lets you pursue growth and meaning and build a life truly guided by what matters most, discomfort included.
It's really about expanding your capacity for all of life, isn't it? Not just the easy, comfortable bits.
So here's something to think about then. What if the uncomfortable feelings you try the hardest to avoid? What if they are actually the most powerful signals you have, pointing you directly towards the very things you value most in this world? Something to mull over until next time.